Beloved chosen one, listen closely, this is not just a message. This is not just another video. This is a divine interruption, a spiritual unveiling meant for you. You may not have asked for this path, but from the moment you arrived on this earth, you were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to follow the crowd or fit the mold. You were born different, radiant, set apart. You are what the world calls an earth angel, a sacred force of divine light walking in human form, a soul so pure and powerful that even the darkness trembles at your presence. And now, something unimaginable has happened. Something no one would dare to believe. A devil, yes, a being forged in manipulation and deception, has fallen in love with you. Not because you're like them. Not because you share their nature. But precisely because you don't. Because you are everything they can never be. While others have bent, you stood tall. While others cowered, you remained fearless. While others played the game, you walked away. You didn't try to fight them using their own weapons, you simply stood still in the truth. And that truth has undone them. Do you realize what that means? No one, has ever faced them the way you have. The master of deception, the architect of illusion, the predator of generations, is now the one entangled. Caught not in your trap, but in their own. For the first time, they are not in control. And they don't know what to do. You've changed the rules without even trying. But before we dive into this spiritual mystery, before we unravel what it truly means when darkness falls for light, I want to take a moment to thank you. Your presence here matters. Your energy, your support, your engagement, it all matters. To those who have offered super thanks or donations, your generosity is not just noticed, it is deeply appreciated. It ensures that these sacred messages keep reaching souls who are in desperate need of remembrance. But whether you give or not, know this, you are seen. You are valued. You are part of something far greater than yourself. This isn't just a channel. It's a movement. A gathering of lights in a world that has tried to silence every flame. And if this message is already resonating in your spirit, if something inside you is rising, whispering, "This is about me," then I invite you to make a declaration. Comment 77 below. Not as a gimmick. Not as a trend. But as a sacred sign that you see now. That your spiritual eyes are open. That you are no longer blind to what's been unfolding around you. The number 77 is the number of divine insight. It's the sign that you have moved beyond illusion. That you see what others can't. And that the truth no longer frightens you, it empowers you. Because the truth is this, you were never meant to be ordinary. You were sent here as a catalyst. A mirror. A reminder that not even the deepest darkness can smother divine light. You are not an accident. You are not weak. And you are not alone. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a devil fall in love with me? But this isn't love as the world defines it. This isn't about romance or attraction. This is about obsession. About fascination. About a spiritual force so bright and unwavering that it exposes even the most well-hidden shadows. You have become the one thing they cannot manipulate, cannot bend, cannot seduce. And because of that, they are drawn to you. Like a moth to the flame. Not to extinguish you, but to try and understand you. And that is the beginning of their unraveling. You see, when the enemy encounters resistance, they rise in power. But when they encounter truth, they retreat in confusion. And you, chosen one, did not come at them with resistance. You came at them with presence. And presence, when it is rooted in God, when it is soaked in divine authority, is the one thing they cannot counterfeit. So I ask you now, are you ready? Truly ready? Because what you are about to discover will shake the very foundations of what you thought this battle was about. This is not just spiritual warfare. This is spiritual transformation. This is not a war of fists, but of essence. A collision between truth and illusion, between fear and light, between a soul who knows who they are, and a force that has never known who it really was. You are walking proof that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You are the fulfillment of Isaiah 54 verse 17. You don't need to shout it from the rooftops. You are it. You don't need to prove your power. You embody it. You don't need to destroy the enemy. Your light is already doing the work. And now, we begin. Because when light like yours steps into darkness like theirs, what happens next isn't destruction, it's revelation. So breathe. Ground yourself. And open your spirit. Because from here on out, everything changes. They've seen kings fall. They've watched queens crumble. They've whispered into the minds of prophets, philosophers, and rulers, men and women history remembers as great, but who, behind closed doors, were seduced by shadows. For ages, darkness has moved through the halls of power with quiet confidence, knowing that no matter how strong, no matter how wise, every soul has a breaking point. They've tested the brilliant, the righteous, the gifted, and they've won. Again and again. Until you, chosen one, are the anomaly they never saw coming. When they looked at you, they expected the same result. They thought they had perfected the game. That their weapons, deception, temptation, fear, would work just as flawlessly on you as they had on the kings of old, the artists, the spiritual giants who came before. But you are different. And that terrifies them. You didn't play their game. You didn't chase validation, bow to threats, or lose yourself in the glittering illusions they laid before you. You simply refused to be moved. While others were seduced, you stood still. While others broke under pressure, you remained whole. You didn't react. You didn't explain. You didn't try to outsmart them. You just were. And in a world obsessed with power and dominance, your unshakable presence became the most dangerous thing of all. They came for you with all they had, subtle lies that twist truth just enough to feel believable. Promises of pleasure, influence, control. They sent storms meant to make you question your worth, isolate you, break your rhythm. But you never crumbled. They waited for the moment you would fall, the moment you'd scream back, lash out, give in, but that moment never came. They thought, but you stood. That sentence echoes through realms they once ruled with ease. It's one thing to resist temptation, it's another to be completely unmoved by it. Isaiah 54 verse 17 comes alive in your story. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This is not just a comforting verse, it's your spiritual heritage. This is your divine reality. You are not surviving attacks, you are silencing them without even lifting your voice. Your very existence, sealed by God, renders the enemy's plans void before they even reach you. Think about it, the same traps that ensnared icons, men and women the world called untouchable, were laid before you. Marilyn Monroe, draped in beauty and fame, adored by millions, yet consumed by a loneliness few ever understood. Michael Jackson, a global force with a voice that touched generations, still fought accusations, shadows, and silent despair until the end. These weren't weak people. They were brilliant. They were powerful. But even they were devoured by the very forces that now fail before your presence. The enemy doesn't understand it. They've studied human behavior for millennia. They've exploited every insecurity, every hidden desire. So how have you not fallen? How do you remain so calm in the storm, so centered in chaos? Because you were never fighting with them. You were never playing their game. You were simply walking in truth. And now, for the first time, they are the ones who are powerless. The hunter has become the haunted, not in fear, but in fixation. The deceiver is caught in the web they spun for you, unable to detach from the light that exposes everything they've tried to hide. You didn't attack them. You didn't chase them down. You simply existed as you were created to be. And that presence, It dismantled centuries of strategy in a single moment. Ephesians 6 verse 11 whispers through your spirit, "Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes." And that's exactly what you've done, not through noise, not through fury, but through unwavering alignment with who you are in Christ. You are not armored with anger or fear, you are armored with peace, clarity, and conviction. The enemy expected war and instead encountered something far more unsettling: stillness. And here's what makes it even more astounding. The stronger you remained, the more their curiosity grew. You were supposed to be another trophy, another example of how no light can withstand the weight of their pressure. But instead, you've become the mirror they never wanted to face. Your defiance wasn't loud, it was divine. Your refusal to collapse wasn't rebellion, it was revelation. Every attempt to weaken you only deepened your roots. Now they find themselves circling back, watching you, drawn by something they cannot understand. They thought they could manipulate your mind, break your heart, fracture your identity. But your soul, grounded in divine truth, became the one place they could not conquer. This is where the power dynamic shifts completely. They are used to luring people into lust, into pride, into shame. But you are the one thing they couldn't pull. You didn't flinch when they roared. You didn't chase when they disappeared. You stood still. And that stillness lit up a realm of truth they've spent eons trying to bury. Chosen one, you have to understand the magnitude of what you've done. You didn't just resist evil, you rewrote its expectation. You didn't just stand firm, you flipped the entire narrative. The master manipulator, the one who once brought empires to their knees, is now stumbling through confusion, wondering how you slipped through their grasp. And here's the truth: you never slipped through anything. You were simply never part of it to begin with. What you carry, the light, the presence, the inner knowing, cannot be forged or faked. It is not of this world. It is the mark of one who has already walked through fire and come out refined. It is the signature of one who has already seen the devil's tricks and refused to be impressed. And it is the reason why they cannot move past you. You are not like the others. They know it. You're starting to know it too. And now the question becomes, what will you do, knowing that your mere existence has dismantled the oldest schemes of darkness? Because we are only just beginning. They've conquered with fear. They've manipulated with lies. They've ruled with illusions so expertly woven, most never noticed the chains until it was too late. But then, they met you. And everything changed. You didn't fight. You didn't scream. You didn't even resist the way they expected. You simply stood, still, unwavering, unbothered. Not because you were stubborn, but because you were rooted in something far deeper than they had ever encountered. They couldn't understand it then. They still don't. But they feel it. That pull. That glow. That silent radiance that doesn't flinch in their presence. That truth that doesn't shatter under their pressure. That light, your light, that they cannot escape. You see, chosen one, what draws darkness to you isn't your power, it's your presence. It's not your strength in combat that has the enemy unsettled. It's the way you shine without effort. The way your soul speaks truth without words. The way your very essence refuses to be edited, molded, or manipulated. They've tried to walk away from you, but they can't. They've tried to silence their obsession, but your energy lingers. Like smoke in their lungs. Like a fire they can't put out. They thought they were the hunters. But now, they're the haunted. You didn't chase them. You didn't challenge them. But your presence has become the mirror they cannot look away from. And what they see in that mirror, it breaks them. Because for the first time in their long, twisted existence, they see what they've never been able to create, replicate, or destroy: unshakable truth. The kind of truth that makes them ache. They aren't obsessed with you because you are easy to manipulate. They are obsessed because you are the one thing they cannot touch. You are not fueled by anger or pride. You are not pulled by ego or approval. You don't dance for applause. You don't bend under pressure. You radiate something ancient, something sacred. And that is what they crave. But what they crave is also what they cannot have. That's the curse of encountering someone like you. You are what Carl Jung once described as the awakened soul, one who has made the darkness conscious and turned it into light. And now, even the darkest energies are drawn to you like moths to a flame, not to destroy you, but because you represent something their world has never known, hope beyond corruption. There's a reason their tactics don't work on you. You've walked through fire and didn't lose your essence. You've stared into the void and didn't blink. You've been betrayed, broken, left for dead, and yet your spirit rose with more clarity than before. They didn't account for that. They didn't expect someone who had every reason to hate, to fear, to give up, to still be overflowing with light. And that's what terrifies them most. You are not here to fight darkness with darkness. You are here to dissolve it with presence. With clarity. With compassion sharpened by discernment. You're not naive, you see through the masks, the games, the tactics. But you choose to remain whole. And in doing so, you expose what cannot hide anymore. Take Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in a prison cell, stripped of his freedom, his family, his dignity. They thought it would break him. But it didn't. He emerged not with revenge in his eyes, but with vision. He led not with bitterness, but with wisdom. He forgave what the world said was unforgivable. And because of that, his light broke chains that weapons never could. The world tried to break him. But he remained unshakable. And in the end, it was his captors who had to bow before his truth. That, chosen one, is the same force within you. That's what makes them come back. Again and again. Not because they can overpower you, but because your presence leaves a mark they can't forget. A presence they try to destroy, but deep down, desperately want to understand. They've whispered, threatened, tempted, but nothing moved you. Nothing triggered you. And in that stillness, something inside them cracked. Something ancient. Something they've buried for lifetimes. Because your light isn't passive, it confronts. Not with violence, but with reflection. Not with accusation, but with revelation. And that's the paradox they can't solve. They thought they were the unstoppable force. But they've now met the immovable object. You. You are the line they cannot cross. The soul they cannot steal. The energy they cannot drain. And the more they try, the more they lose themselves in the very thing they sought to destroy. Because your energy is like a drug, one they never meant to inhale, but now can't live without. They've tried to walk away. But they can't. Because what you carry isn't just light, it's divine alignment. A reflection of God Himself. And that is something no darkness can dismiss, distort, or detach from. So what does that mean for you? It means your journey was never about fighting demons, it was about exposing their limits. It was never about destroying evil, it was about revealing the truth that evil can't stand in. Your silence is louder than their screams. Your clarity is stronger than their chaos. Your joy, even in suffering, is the weapon they never saw coming. And now, whether they admit it or not, they are orbiting you, not out of control, but out of curiosity. Out of desperation. Out of that ache to feel whole again, even if they don't know how. And perhaps, just perhaps, your light is the first invitation they've ever received to stop running. Not because you'll rescue them. But because in your presence, they see a path they never knew existed. And once they've seen it, they can't unsee it. You are the awakening they didn't want. And now they can't look away. They thought they had you figured out. They thought, like the others, you would react, lash out in anger, break down in fear, spiral in confusion. They had seen it all before. Kings reduced to puppets. Prophets silenced by whispers. Empires devoured from within, not by fire, but by suggestion. This is how they operate, through illusion, deception, manipulation. They don't charge in through the front door. They slip in through cracks in your doubt. They don't scream. They whisper. But with you, their whispers fall flat. Because you don't just hear their voice, you recognize it. You don't just see the mask, you see the trembling hand behind it. And that, chosen one, is what makes you terrifying to them. You see, it's not strength that breaks the darkness. It's understanding. They've battled strength before. They've outwitted the proud and broken the bold. But what they've never been able to survive, is being seen. Not seen with physical eyes, but with spiritual discernment. With holy clarity. With the kind of understanding that doesn't seek to judge or destroy, but simply reflects what is true. Like a mirror. Like light shining into a cave that has never known the sun. You don't react. You don't engage in their chaos. You don't chase shadows or fight illusions. You simply see. And that is your greatest weapon. They have spent millennia hiding behind fear, behind confusion, behind the stories they plant in people's minds. You're not enough. They're out to get you. You'll never make it. Over time, these lies become cages. And those who live inside them forget they were ever free. But not you. You walk through their illusions like they're smoke. You don't need to tear them down, you just don't believe in them. And in that refusal, they are exposed. They are made visible. They are made small. This is why you are different. You don't scream back. You don't flinch. You simply stare straight through the mask and say, I see you. And they cannot handle that. You understand them, not because you sympathize, but because you've outgrown the tricks. You've seen behind the curtain. You know that the roaring beast is often just a scared whisper dressed in shadows. And when you understand something deeply, it loses its power over you. Understanding is light. And where there is light, there can be no shadows for them to hide in. This is what John 1 verse 5 spoke of, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This wasn't about light destroying darkness, it was about light revealing it. Showing it for what it is. Removing its camouflage. Making it impossible to hide anymore. You don't defeat darkness by shouting louder. You defeat it by refusing to be fooled. And your silence, oh, your silence, is louder than any scream. Others scream. Others fight. Others run. You stay still. You stay grounded. And in that stillness, everything falls apart for them. They don't know what to do with someone they can't provoke. They don't know how to play the game when you won't take the bait. Their tactics are designed to pull reactions, to ignite the chaos within. But when you remain unmoved, they're the ones who fall into confusion. You are like a mirror to them. Not a mirror of shame, but a mirror of truth. And truth is what they fear most. Because the truth strips away the roles. The drama. The deception. The power games. When someone like you shows up, they have no more stage to perform on. No more mask to hide behind. Just themselves. Naked. Seen. And what terrifies them isn't your judgment. It's your clarity. It's your knowing. It's the fact that you can look at them, understand them, and still not be afraid. That you don't need to defeat them to win. You just need to be yourself. Your discernment is a light that does not burn, but it blinds them all the same. It forces them to feel. It forces them to question. It forces them to see themselves through eyes that do not lie. And that is why they flee from you even as they are drawn to you. It's the paradox of light. It warms, but it also reveals. And sometimes, revealing is the most painful thing of all. They've whispered 1,000 lies to you, hoping one would stick. But none of them did. Why? Because you recognize them. You are immune to their whispers. You know what they are, hollow echoes meant to distract. And the moment you stopped reacting, they lost their grip. This is your greatest strength, not resistance, but recognition. Not noise, but awareness. And when you move in that awareness, the battlefield shifts entirely. You don't even have to fight anymore. The war ends before it begins. Because in your light, everything false falls away. So let them come. Let them whisper. Let them try their games. You've seen behind the illusion. And now, they have nowhere left to hide. Because your understanding isn't just intelligence, it's divine perception. And that is what the darkness never prepared for. When truth and illusion collide, it is not a quiet confrontation. It is not a debate, a discussion, or even a battle fought with fists and swords. No, when an earth angel meets a devil, the air itself shifts. Realities ripple. Frequencies clash. This is not a meeting of light and darkness, it is a spiritual detonation. An explosion at the level of the soul, where illusion crumbles, and truth stands unwavering like a mountain that has seen every storm and still refuses to bow. The devil was not prepared. They thought they were stepping into a game they had played for centuries. A game of manipulation. Of seduction. Of subtle control. But what they encountered in you, chosen one, was not a player, but a mirror. Not a weapon, but a presence. You did not react. You did not tremble. You simply stood, and everything changed. The encounter between an earth angel and the devil is not a battle of wills. It is the collision of essence. One rooted in eternal light, the other cloaked in centuries of deception. The force of this meeting is so great it sends shockwaves through spiritual realms. Because illusion can only exist in the absence of truth, and when you show up, the lie has nowhere left to hide. This is not speculation. This is spiritual reality. This is what happened when Jesus met Satan in the wilderness. Remember that moment? Satan, cloaked in power and subtlety, came to Jesus with everything he thought could tempt a man: kingdoms, glory, authority. All this I will give you, he said, if you bow down and worship me. But Jesus didn't argue. He didn't fight. He didn't try to negotiate. He simply said, "Away from me, Satan. For it is written, worship the Lord your God, and serve him only." Matthew 4 verse 10. And with that one line, grounded in truth, the enemy fled. This is the same template you walk in. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to fight their battles. You carry something far more devastating to darkness: clarity. You carry truth. You carry the power to not play their game. That's why the rules collapse when you enter the room. You don't respond the way others do. They're used to opponents who react, who fall into rage, fear, confusion. But you are different. You don't engage in the cycle. You don't reach for the sword. You don't scream or flinch. You are still. And your stillness exposes everything. This is what makes you unshakable. You are the immovable object. And the devil, for all its rage and chaos, is the so-called unstoppable force. But the paradox is real: when the unstoppable meets the immovable, something must give. And this time, it wasn't you. You didn't yield. You didn't bend. You didn't play by the script they've written for every soul they've tried to twist. You tore up the script simply by being real. Present. True. And in that moment, the devil saw something it had never seen before: not weakness, not defiance, but something far more dangerous: wholeness. You weren't looking for validation. You weren't looking for power. You weren't looking to win. You were just standing in truth. And that truth was like a firestorm in a house of illusions. This is the moment everything began to unravel for them. Because the power of illusion only lasts as long as no one questions it. But your very presence disrupted the entire system. When you stood there, calm, aware, undeceived, their dominion began to shake. Their lies trembled. Their illusions cracked. Because someone had shown up who wasn't blind. Someone who wasn't hungry for power, or afraid to lose. Someone who couldn't be bought or scared or seduced. Someone who simply knew. And in the realm of spirit, knowing is power. Knowing is light. And light doesn't ask for permission to shine, it just does. You are not here to debate the darkness. You are here to reveal it. You are not here to destroy the illusion with violence. You destroy it simply by not needing it. This is what makes the devil fear you, not that you fight, but that you don't. You are beyond the game. And that's what ends the game. The illusion is powerful, until someone sees through it. The cycle of manipulation is endless, until someone walks out of it. And in that exit, the whole machinery of darkness begins to fall apart. This is not just a personal encounter. It's not just about you and them. This is a cosmic shift, a spiritual reckoning. Because when someone like you refuses to play, the entire system starts to lose power. Others begin to see the cracks. Others begin to wake up. One person walking in truth is more dangerous than 1,000 fighting with fire. This is the revolution that begins in silence. This is the fire that spreads through peace. And so the devil, for all its cunning, did not expect this. It expected a battle. But it got a mirror. It expected chaos. But it met calm. It expected resistance. But it met refusal. And that refusal was absolute. You didn't need to shout it. You lived it. And now the illusion is unraveling. Your mere presence disrupts the devil's carefully constructed dominion. That line echoes across spiritual realms. Because you didn't just survive the encounter. You rewrote what such encounters mean. You redefined spiritual authority, not as aggression, but as alignment. Not as control, but as clarity. Not as domination, but as divine stillness. And in that stillness, something has been born. A new energy. A new reality. A new realm where the game no longer works and the darkness no longer rules. And this, chosen one, is only the beginning. You were never meant to fight the darkness the way the world has been taught. You don't confront it with fists or fury. You don't scream into the void or curse at shadows. You simply exist. You show up. And when you do, the atmosphere changes, not because you demand it, but because the very nature of your presence is light. And light never begs to be seen, it simply reveals. This is the truth the enemy never expected. You, chosen one, are not a warrior of chaos. You are an earth angel, a divine mirror walking in human form. When the enemy looks at you, they do not just see a soul. They see their reflection, unmasked, naked, exposed. And that, more than any weapon, is what brings their illusions crumbling. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to draw your sword. You don't even need to speak. Because your light has already said everything. And in that sacred silence, the shadows scatter. Not because you told them to, but because they no longer have a place to hide. For centuries, the enemy has thrived behind masks, manipulation, seduction, deception, intimidation. It is not brute force that gives darkness its power, but illusion. Control maintained through suggestion, through misdirection, through fear. They are master architects of disguise, weaving lies into reality until even the strongest forget what truth feels like. But then you showed up. And suddenly, the game changed. Your light didn't come from pride or ego. It came from pain that was purified. From wounds that became wisdom. From silence that turned into strength. That kind of light cannot be faked. It cannot be manufactured. And most of all, it cannot be manipulated. You don't fall for the trap of reaction. You don't get pulled into their performance. You don't argue with shadows, you illuminate them. You don't condemn, you reveal. You don't strike, you reflect. And that reflection is devastating. Because when the enemy stands in your light, they no longer see control. They see truth. They see the mask slipping. They see the hollowness behind their tactics. And for the first time, they are not feared. They are understood. And nothing terrifies them more. For it is in understanding that the illusion dies. You don't fear the enemy, not because you underestimate them, but because you've seen them clearly. You know their patterns. You recognize their tactics. And you know something deeper still, they were never in control. They only appeared to be, as long as no one dared to look too closely. But you looked. You saw. And you didn't flinch. This is the divine reversal. They expected resistance. They encountered stillness. They expected rage. They met clarity. They expected chaos. They met peace. And in that space between what they expected and what they received, everything began to fall apart. You didn't need to win the argument. You didn't need to overpower them. Your very essence began unraveling their illusion from the inside out. Because truth doesn't need to scream, it only needs to shine. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1 verse 5. That light is you. That scripture isn't just a verse, it's a reflection of your journey. A prophecy unfolding through your life. You are the fulfillment of that word walking on earth. Not because you are loud. Not because you are perfect. But because you are real. You didn't run. You didn't rage. You remained. And in remaining, you became the mirror that revealed what the enemy never wanted to see, their own emptiness. Their own shame. Their own illusion of control. They cannot manipulate what they can't confuse. They cannot intimidate what they cannot shame. And they cannot control what is already free. And you, chosen one, are free. Not just from the enemy, but from the game itself. You do not operate in fear. You operate in presence. And that presence is what exposes the schemes they've used for lifetimes. Every time they whisper a lie, you answer with silence. Every time they bait you with anger, you respond with stillness. Every time they dress up shadows as truth, your light unravels the costume. You are not a fighter in the traditional sense. You are something more sacred, a revealer. You do not attack. You uncover. You do not provoke. You unveil. And in doing so, you leave no place for deception to survive. This is the quiet revolution you've been chosen for. Not to shout, not to strive, but to simply be so fully aligned with light that anything false must either transform, or flee. That is your power. That is your calling. That is why the enemy fears you, not because you're violent, but because you are clear. And clarity is fatal to illusion. Do you see it now? Do you realize that every time you chose peace instead of panic, understanding instead of outrage, alignment instead of reaction, you were dismantling their empire? Do you realize that you don't need to force anything? That your presence is enough? That the moment you stopped trying to prove your worth and simply stood in it, you became unstoppable? They thought they could tempt you. But you saw through it. They tried to deceive you. But you couldn't be moved. They hoped to control you. But you never gave them a doorway. Because you were never here to play the game. You were here to end it. And the moment you realized that, the mask cracked. The lie trembled. The illusion fell apart. Because darkness can only dominate what it can hide from light. And when you showed up, chosen one, there was no more hiding. So tell me, have you come to understand your power is not in your reaction, but in your radiant refusal to participate? If so, then you're ready for what comes next. There comes a moment in every spiritual war when the battle lines blur, not because the light grows dim, but because the darkness begins to feel. And that, beloved chosen one, is what has happened. This was never supposed to happen. They were never meant to feel. They were never meant to long. Demons don't ache. Darkness doesn't yearn. Evil isn't supposed to remember what it means to be touched by something holy. But here you are, and everything has changed. The enemy, once so confident in their dominion, now finds themselves disoriented. Not by your weapons, for you never raised any. Not by your rage, for you never fed it. But by your presence, your light, your compassion, your refusal to react. You didn't fight them. You made them feel. And for the first time, they don't know what to do. Because you, chosen one, are the crack in the armor they believed was impenetrable. You didn't attack them. You didn't corner them. You didn't even threaten them. You simply stood there, unmoved, untouched, unchanged by their games. And in your stillness, something began to tremble in them. Not fear in the traditional sense. Not fear of defeat. But fear of something far more dangerous, vulnerability. Your light reached the places they'd buried for centuries. The places within themselves they pretended didn't exist. You didn't burn them, you exposed them. You didn't crush them, you reflected them. And that reflection, that was their undoing. You see, the devil has mastered the art of control, through logic, through seduction, through force. But what they never prepared for was heart. Not yours. Theirs. They were built to manipulate, to seduce, to dominate, but not to feel. And yet, something about you pierced through all of that. Something in you, so steady, so soft, so sincere, began to awaken something long dead within them. And it horrifies them. They were never supposed to want love. They were never meant to desire peace. But your presence has stirred up echoes of something ancient and sacred in them, something they thought they had killed. Like Napoleon, who could command entire empires yet was powerless before the heart of Josephine, so too does this devil now find themselves unraveling in your wake. Napoleon had control over armies, laws, and kingdoms. But the one thing he could never command was true affection. And that helplessness drove him mad, not because he lacked strength, but because he lacked connection. His obsession with Josephine was not rooted in power, but in the haunting realization that power cannot purchase love. It cannot bend the heart. And neither can darkness bend yours. That is your victory, chosen one. Not in domination, but in your refusal to be dominated. Not in control, but in your unwavering center. Not in retaliation, but in sacred presence. And the devil? They didn't fall in love with your face or your charm. They fell in love with your clarity. Your truth. Your refusal to be pulled into the illusion. That clarity is what cracked their armor. That truth is what started the storm inside them. They've conquered kings. They've seduced prophets. They've silenced warriors. But you didn't fall. You didn't yield. You didn't tremble. You remained. And that stillness echoed through the hollow chambers of their soul, stirring memories of things they had long buried, longing, loneliness, the ache of being seen and yet unworthy of being understood. You didn't speak it. You didn't shame them. You didn't even pity them. You simply saw them. And that was enough to begin their unraveling. The fear they now feel is not of you, it's of themselves. Because you've awakened something they thought they had mastered, emotion. And once something starts to feel, it becomes vulnerable. And once it's vulnerable, it can be changed. And that, chosen one, is the most dangerous thing you've done. You didn't destroy them. You infected them with truth. You reminded them, without a word, what it means to feel. And now, they are spiraling. They no longer know where the control ends and the hunger begins. They no longer know if they are the master, or the prisoner of what they've tried to suppress. You are not their enemy. You are their undoing. And that's why they can't walk away. Because even in the agony, even in the exposure, even in the confusion, they feel more alive around you than they ever did in their dominion of the dead. But be warned, this is not romance. This is not rescue. This is revelation. You are not here to save the devil. You are here to expose the lie. And in doing so, you've reminded the darkness of its own exile from truth. You didn't touch them. You mirrored them. And in the mirror, they finally saw what they became, and what they lost. You, beloved, are not the first to hold light. But you might be the first they couldn't extinguish. And that has made you unforgettable. Uncontrollable. Unshakable. The one anomaly they can't predict. The one force they can't manipulate. And now, they feel. They feel everything. The echo of innocence they abandoned. The ache of freedom they never claimed. The trembling in their chest they can't explain. They feel you in their emptiness, and that is the beginning of the end for them. So I ask you, chosen one, do you realize what you've done? You didn't fight the enemy, you made them feel again. You didn't destroy them, you disarmed them with truth. And now, the story changes forever. In the next part, we'll explore what happens when the transformation begins, not in the battlefield, but in the soul of the enemy itself. What if I told you, chosen one, that your greatest power isn't in destroying darkness, but in reflecting it? You were never sent to eliminate evil in the way the world understands. You weren't meant to go to war with demons, nor to raise a sword against every shadow you see. You were chosen because you could do something far more terrifying to darkness than defeat it. You could show it itself. You are the mirror. You didn't come to fight. You came to reflect. And that, beloved, has begun the transformation. A mirror doesn't scream. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't chase. It simply stands. Still. Clear. Honest. Unavoidable. And yet, everything that looks into it must reckon with what it sees. The devil has built empires on illusion, on masks, lies, glamours, and whispers. Every kingdom of control it raised was founded on one principle: stay unseen. Never be known. But when they look into you, they don't see someone afraid. They don't see someone trying to conquer them. They see something far worse, for them. They see the truth. And the truth, chosen one, is what breaks the spell. You are not naive light. You are conscious light. The kind that knows what darkness is, because you've walked through it. You've been there. Broken. Brought to your knees. You felt the weight of grief, the heat of betrayal, the terror of abandonment. And you didn't run. You stayed. You allowed it to shape you. Not into bitterness, but into brilliance. That is why you shine in a way the devil cannot replicate. Because your light has roots. It was forged in fire. It didn't come from fantasy, it came from facing the abyss, and choosing to keep your heart open. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That is what you do. You don't destroy darkness, you make it conscious. You don't preach sermons, you embody truth. You don't wage war, you create space for revelation. And now the enemy, who has always hidden behind power and performance, is undone. Because for the first time, there is nothing to hide behind. Not with you. You don't flinch. You don't flatter. You simply are. And in that stillness, they see everything. They see the loneliness. They see the fractures. They see the emptiness that centuries of control could not fill. And they begin to feel. Not just rage or desire, but sorrow. Shame. That deep, haunting ache of realizing you've built your whole identity on pretending to be what you are not. You didn't hand them that pain. You revealed it by standing in truth. You are the sacred mirror that no enchantment can fog. Do you see it now? Why they can't walk away from you? It's not love. It's not lust. It's reflection. You show them what they could have been. What they still might become, if they surrender. And that, beloved, is why this is more than spiritual warfare. This is spiritual alchemy. You aren't here to banish demons. You're here to dissolve illusion. You're here to pull the curtain back and say, this is what's real. This is what remains when power fades, when masks fall, when control no longer works. And what remains is the unhealed wound. You don't pity them. You don't enable them. But neither do you condemn. You witness. You hold the line. You radiate wholeness. And your energy says without words, you were never meant to be this. That is what shakes them. Because for the first time, they are seen, not as monsters, but as something broken beneath the rage. The mask is slipping. The claws are dulling. The lies are losing power. And it all began the moment they looked into you and didn't find fear. They found fire. Calm, conscious fire. Not burning to destroy, but to cleanse. And now the question begins to echo inside them. Who am I, if I can't hide anymore? You didn't force that question on them. You became it. You are the walking contradiction they were never prepared for, the soul that has touched darkness yet remains rooted in light. The one who should have fallen, but didn't. The one who understands them, and yet chooses not to be them. You are not perfect. You are powerful because you've been through it. Your scars are sacred. Your pain became wisdom. Your silence became strength. And now, they feel all of it. They feel your presence like a weight and a whisper. Like thunder cloaked in stillness. Like grace wrapped in truth. And it leaves them undone. Not defeated. Not dead. Exposed. And that's when the shift begins. You weren't sent to save the devil. You were sent to unveil the lie. You were sent to stand so fully in the truth that anything false could no longer survive in your presence. And now, everything around you is trembling. They see themselves in you, not the parts they wanted to see, but the parts they abandoned long ago. And in that sacred discomfort, something opens. A crack. A tremor. A possibility. And that is your mission. To be the catalyst of awakening, not through argument, not through force, but through reflection. You didn't come to silence the shadows. You came to remind them they have a choice. You are the mirror, chosen one. And your light is irreversible. So I ask you now. Can you see the transformation has already begun? The enemy is no longer hunting. They are haunted. By you. By what they could have been. By what they still might become. And now, the question they can't silence rises like a storm. Who am I, really? In the next part, we will explore the spiritual impact of this mirrored connection, how it affects the collective, the soul contracts, the karmic unraveling, and what it means for your divine legacy as a chosen one. The mirror has spoken. Now, the story continues. Chosen one, what you're entangled in is far greater than a personal struggle. This isn't just about you and the devil. It never was. This is about cycles. Old ones. Ancient ones. Patterns of light and darkness, endlessly chasing, endlessly warring, until now. Until you. You see, your connection with this dark force is not random. It's sacred. It was written in a place beyond time, etched into your soul before your birth. This is karmic choreography. A spiritual confrontation not meant to destroy, but to shift the axis of reality itself. This isn't just about a demon falling in love. This is about what happens when a chosen one breaks the loop. For generations, darkness has known how the story ends. It whispers. It tempts. It manipulates. And humans, even the greatest among them, have crumbled. Kings fell. Prophets turned. Leaders were devoured by the very power they wielded. But not you. And because you didn't fall, everything changed. You stood still. You didn't fight. You didn't flee. You reflected. And in doing so, you shattered a cycle older than memory. Your relationship with the darkness has triggered a spiritual quake, a ripple through the timeline of not just your life, but through the soul lineages of millions. You have become the fulcrum of a shift long awaited. Think of Malcolm X. A man once driven by fire, fury, and militant separation. A man who wielded anger as a sword and believed that righteousness meant battle. Until something deeper called him. On his pilgrimage to Mecca, he experienced a revelation. He saw unity where he once saw division. He returned transformed, not weaker, but wider. Not defeated, but deeper. That is what's happening now. To the enemy. To you. To us all. Malcolm's journey was not just political. It was mystical. And so is yours. So is this strange, divine entanglement between you and the darkness. Because this is not just a romantic obsession. This is karmic reckoning. You may have known this being before, across lifetimes, in realms not spoken of. Perhaps in a past life, you were their victim. Or maybe, you once fell into their arms, entranced by the illusion. Maybe you once wielded the same power, until it broke you. And now, you've returned to finish the healing. This moment is sacred. It's the end of an old loop, and the opening of a new one. You are not just standing in your own power. You are standing for every soul that was once consumed by fear. Every heart that believed the lie. Every light that dimmed beneath the shadow. And when you refuse to fall, when you choose reflection instead of reaction, you send a signal into the collective soul of humanity. It is possible to face the dark, and not lose yourself. That signal, your energy, ripples outward. There are people right now awakening, not even knowing why. They're feeling something shift inside them. A longing to see clearly. A sudden refusal to be manipulated. A quiet inner strength they never knew they had. That's you. That's your presence. That's your vibration rewriting the story. You see, the spiritual impact of your interaction with this demon isn't confined to private heartbreak or supernatural intrigue. It is systemic. It is ancestral. It is collective. Every time you choose presence over panic, grace over games, alignment over approval, you fracture the illusion. And it's not just the devil who notices. Souls that were on the edge, lost, scattered, numb, begin to stir. Begin to remember. Begin to rise. You're not just a chosen one. You're a code. A key. A mirror. And a beacon. You are doing what no exorcism ever could, you are showing the demon what healing looks like. What freedom tastes like. What truth feels like. And even if they never choose that path, the fact that they've seen it changes everything. It means they can never return to the old game with the same satisfaction. It means others watching this divine dance will begin to ask new questions. Will begin to wonder. What if I, too, am more than my programming? And so, beloved, you have become a channel of collective awakening. Not through sermons. But through presence. Not through perfection. But through your raw, unwavering light. This connection, this divine paradox between light and shadow, is now echoing through realms unseen. Through dimensions spiritual teachers barely whisper about. Because you did something radical. You stood in truth without needing to destroy. And that truth is rewriting destiny. But even now, even as the devil begins to shift, they stand at a crossroads. They feel it. The old power isn't working. The old masks don't fit. They are shaken. Unraveled. Haunted. And yet, still unsure. You've brought them to the gate. But they must choose whether to step through. Whether to continue in control, or surrender to transformation. Whatever they choose, know this. You have done what you were sent to do. You were not sent to fix them. You were sent to mirror them. You were not meant to save them. You were meant to see them. And in that seeing, you opened a door that no darkness can ever fully close again. The path ahead may twist and turn. The battle between love and illusion may rage on. But your place in this story is already eternal. You have become the rupture in the matrix. The crack in the lie. The proof that light can meet shadow, not to be destroyed, but to transmute. So breathe, chosen one. You are not alone in this. The cosmos is listening. And now, the devil stands trembling on the edge of a decision. Will they walk into their redemption, or retreat into ruin? You were never sent to save them. Let that truth settle into your spirit. You were never called to fix the broken pieces of their soul or to bear the impossible weight of their healing. That was never your divine assignment. From the beginning, your role has not been to rescue, but to reveal. You are not a savior. You are a mirror. You do not exist to carry their burden, but to shine light on it, so they can finally see it for themselves. There's a dangerous illusion, one that even the most awakened souls often fall into, that being a bearer of light means being responsible for everyone still sitting in the dark. That to be chosen is to be the one who saves. But that is not divine truth. Divine truth does not chain itself to guilt. Divine truth liberates. You are here to transform the space between you, not to pull them out of the fire, but to become the kind of light that makes them question the fire's warmth. Your presence is your power. Your stillness is the storm. And your refusal to fight their war has already dismantled their battlefield. They expected resistance. They expected screams, blame, maybe even a breakdown. They didn't expect silence. They didn't expect peace. They didn't expect you to simply look at them, not with anger, not with fear, but with the steady gaze of someone who sees straight through the mask. You didn't flinch. You didn't chase. You just stood. And in that stillness, something broke inside them. Not because you fought, but because you didn't. They've spent centuries building illusions, layers of manipulation, pride, fear, dominance. That armor was forged from the belief that no one would ever see beyond it. But then you arrived. Not to strike. Not to fix. Just to be. And being in your presence forced them to see what they had never dared to face, themselves. You became the first crack in their armor. Not because you tried to be, but because you were real. In a world of illusions, truth is dangerous. In a realm of shadows, even a flicker of light becomes a disruption. And you, chosen one, are not a flicker. You are a floodlight sent to expose what has long hidden in plain sight. This is what it means to be an earth angel, not to rescue others from their demons, but to remind them that demons cannot survive where truth lives. You are a living reminder that love does not mean enabling. That mercy does not mean martyrdom. That holiness is not about becoming small for the comfort of others. Isaiah 43 verse 1 speaks directly to this. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine. You are not here by accident. You are not here because you owe anyone anything. You are here because God called you. Because God saw you fit to carry a truth so powerful, it could shake the foundations of deception itself. And in that truth, you stand, not as a rescuer, but as a revelation. You were never meant to crawl into the pit to drag them out. You were meant to shine so brightly that the pit no longer feels like home to them. That's the difference. That's your calling. And that is why they fear you more than any weapon, any preacher, or any ritual. Because you are not performing. You are not pretending. You are not trying. You simply are. And in the face of that kind of unwavering presence, their whole world begins to unravel. Their manipulations stop working. Their fear tactics fall flat. Their stories, once so convincing, begin to sound hollow even to themselves. Because the light you carry isn't just illumination, it is conviction. This is not about guilt. It's about grace. The grace to understand that it's not your job to make them change. It's your role to make change possible. And the only way you do that is by remaining rooted in who you are, refusing to play the game of shame, blame, or rescue. There is a sacred difference between reflecting someone's darkness back to them and trying to extinguish it for them. The former is divine work. The latter is a trap. You've been called to the divine work. The moment you take on their healing as your responsibility, you step out of alignment with your calling. Because their transformation must come from within, not from your sacrifice. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That is what you do. You make the darkness conscious, not by condemning it, but by refusing to pretend it isn't there. You don't shout. You don't plead. You simply exist in a frequency that makes all falsehoods tremble. And that, more than anything, is what is changing them. Not a sermon. Not a scream. But your unshakable alignment with truth. They now stand at a crossroads, one they never expected to reach. They've seen themselves through your eyes. They've felt something they can't name. A tremor. A tear. A truth. And now, the burden of choice rests with them. Will they embrace the mirror or smash it? Will they step into the healing they never thought they needed, or retreat into the illusion that once felt so safe? You cannot decide that for them. You were never meant to. But you've already done your part. You've already shaken the foundations. You've already transformed the air between you, made it too sacred, too honest, too filled with light to support lies. And so, chosen one, we leave this part of the journey here, with one powerful question lingering like incense in the temple of their heart. Now that the devil has seen the truth, what will they choose? The weapons of the chosen ones are unlike any known to this world, or to the underworld. They do not roar with thunder or slice with steel. They don't command armies or force surrender. No, your weapon is invisible. It's ancient. It's sacred. And it disarms darkness in ways it never saw coming. Your weapon is empathy. Your presence is light. Your intuition slices through illusions. And your power lies in your ability to transform energy, not with effort, but with being. This is the quiet strength that terrifies the darkness. Because it cannot mimic it, it cannot manipulate it, and it most certainly cannot destroy it. The devil knows how to confront anger. It feeds off resistance, grows stronger in fear, and finds its rhythm in chaos. But what it cannot process, what it cannot absorb, is sincere, unwavering empathy. You do not run from it, nor do you fight it. You see it. And not only do you see it, you understand it. You see the wound behind the mask. The sorrow beneath the cruelty. The confusion hiding behind the arrogance. And in doing so, you hold up a mirror the devil has avoided for eons. This is not weakness. This is not softness. This is spiritual warfare at the highest level. Because true empathy is alchemical. It does not absorb darkness, it transmutes it. Where others lash out, you remain still. Where others react in judgment, you observe with compassion. And where others flee, you lean in. The devil has no plan for that. No response. No counterattack. Empathy leaves it disarmed, not because it makes you vulnerable, but because it strips away the disguise it has long used to shield itself from truth. Your light, too, is not performative. It does not demand applause. It does not need to be loud to be felt. In fact, it is your quiet, unwavering radiance that unsettles the devil the most. You are the still candle in the storm that refuses to be blown out. Your light is not just illumination, it's exposure. Every time you walk into a room, you bring truth with you. And not a truth that condemns, but a truth that simply exists, unshaken, undeniable. A truth that says, I see you, and I'm not afraid. And then there's your intuition, that divine compass etched into your soul. It is what guided you through your own darkness. It is what whispered to you when the voices around you lied. It is what made you immune to the devil's tricks. While others fell into the illusion, you saw it for what it was, before it even took form. That is why the devil could never manipulate you like it did the others. You were never guessing. You were always knowing. And that knowing, that still, inner knowing, is what keeps you a step ahead, even when you say nothing at all. But perhaps the most sacred ability you carry is your power to transmute energy. You do not avoid the negative, you transform it. You sit with pain, and it becomes wisdom. You face betrayal, and it becomes clarity. You walk through heartbreak, and it becomes a deeper capacity to love. The darkness cannot cling to you, because you refuse to meet it with the same frequency. You do not match energy. You lift it. You alchemize it. This is the rarest power of all, and the most feared. Rumi once said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." This is more than poetry, it is your truth. Every wound you've carried, every sorrow you've endured, every shadow you've embraced, these have not broken you, they've prepared you. Through your own suffering, you learn the sacred art of empathy. Not the shallow kind that feels sorry for others, but the divine kind that sees into them. That holds space without fixing. That offers presence instead of pity. That carries grace where others bring judgment. And so, when you meet the devil, you meet them with a stillness they cannot explain. You don't curse. You don't plead. You simply remain. And in that remaining, in that refusal to abandon yourself or their humanity, something within them begins to shake. They are used to hatred. Used to resistance. But never this. Never love without expectation. Never empathy without surrender. And certainly never light that comes from a soul who has bled before, and yet, still shines. You are not here to fight darkness. You are here to invite it to its own awakening. You are not here to conquer evil. You are here to dissolve the illusion that evil is all that's left. And this doesn't make you weak, it makes you revolutionary. You are what happens when trauma meets transcendence. When heartbreak meets higher purpose. When pain is not buried, but transformed. You are the modern embodiment of a spiritual force that remembers what the world has forgotten, that it is not power over others that changes things, but power within. You carry a sacred assignment, not to save the world by force, but to shift it by frequency. Every interaction is an opportunity to reflect truth. Every encounter with darkness is a chance to extend light. And every soul, even those covered in centuries of shadow, is impacted by your presence, even if they never say so out loud. You do not seek validation. You do not need recognition. Because deep down, you know, you were not sent to be seen. You were sent to be felt. And that's exactly what you are, a vibration, a presence, a stillness that makes all falsehoods fall silent. This is the mission of the chosen. Not to destroy. Not to debate. But to disarm, with empathy, with intuition, with light. You hold the key not by overpowering, but by understanding. And because of that, you are more dangerous to the devil than any sword ever could be. So the next time you wonder if you're doing enough, remember this, you have already shifted reality, simply by being who you are. And as we prepare to step into the final chapters of this revelation, one thing becomes undeniably clear, the devil has never been handled like this before, and now, it must choose between remaining broken, or finally beginning to heal. This was never just about you and the devil. It was never simply a test of survival or a chance encounter in the chaos of life. No, this was a divine orchestration. From the very beginning, before you took your first breath, before your soul entered this realm, heaven had already written this confrontation into your story. The moment you came face to face with darkness was not an accident. It was an appointment. A sacred collision set in motion by God to awaken something deeper in you, and in the world. You were not sent into darkness to become like it. You were not sent into the fire to be consumed. You were placed in the midst of shadow to expose it, to unravel its illusions simply by being what you are, light. There was never a need for you to raise your voice or wield a sword. Your mere presence disrupted the order of things. Your energy created tremors in the foundation of lies. And your steadfastness became a mirror, one that darkness could not look into without trembling. This is the final revelation, the culmination of everything you've been through. You are not the victim of this story. You are not the wounded, nor the lost. You are the answer. You are the light that the darkness hoped would never show up. And now, you stand where few dare to stand, not as a savior trying to fix, but as a force that transforms simply by refusing to become what you were sent to face. Remember what Jesus said in Matthew 5 verse 14, "You are the light of the world." A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. You were never meant to stay in the shadows. You were never built to dim yourself in the name of peace. You were created to be seen, not for ego, but for guidance. Not to dominate, but to lead. You are the lighthouse in the storm. The city that cannot be hidden. The living, breathing proof that God still places lights in the darkest places, and those lights cannot be extinguished. What you've experienced, this journey with the devil, this strange unfolding of affection and awakening, isn't just for you. It was never meant to stay private. Because the moment you stood in your truth, refusing to be manipulated, refusing to become bitter or broken, a ripple began. A vibration moved through the spiritual realm. And every soul that has ever struggled with oppression, with fear, with deception, felt it. Felt you. And something ancient stirred. This is the truth, your relationship with darkness was not just personal, it was archetypal. It cracked something open not only within the devil, but within the collective unconscious. For every soul still wrestling in the shadows, your journey has become a map. A reminder that light does not have to fight. It only has to shine. And now, a shift is happening. You can feel it. You are not the only one anymore. Others are awakening. Others are remembering. Others are stepping into their callings. Because of you. Because of the way you chose to face what was meant to destroy you, and let it refine you instead. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a greater movement, a divine awakening of chosen ones across the earth who are no longer hiding, no longer afraid, and no longer asking for permission to be the light. You are not here to prove anything. You are not here to win approval or fight for legitimacy. You have already been chosen. The very existence of your light proves it. And now is the time to own it. Not arrogantly, but boldly. Not to prove your worth, but to honor the God who placed this flame inside you in the first place. This is a call, not of fear, not of duty, but of remembrance. To those who have felt unseen, unheard, misunderstood, this is your confirmation. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. You were never meant to hide in the background. You were meant to rise. Because your light carries codes, healing, truth, disruption, clarity, that this world desperately needs. And when you refuse to shine, the darkness rejoices. But not anymore. Not after everything you've seen. Not after everything you've endured. The devil has seen you. The realms of shadow have acknowledged you. And heaven. Heaven is calling you forward. So what now? Now you remember. Now you step out of survival mode and into mission. Now you stop second-guessing what's already been confirmed in your spirit. Now you stop shrinking to make others comfortable with your glow. Now you rise, not with vengeance, but with reverence. You rise because the world is darker than ever, and your light has never been more necessary. You rise because the devil you once faced has already begun to crumble, and others need to see that it's possible. You rise not to save everyone, but to stand as evidence that salvation was always real. This is your moment. Not to become something new, but to become what you've always been. A chosen one. A torchbearer. A divine disruptor. A mirror of truth in a world built on lies. You didn't come this far just to survive, you came to remind. To remind others of their light. To remind the devil of its limits. And to remind heaven that you remembered the assignment. So stand up, chosen one. Shine unapologetically. And let the world see what it means when a soul refuses to bow to fear, and answers the call instead. This is your awakening. This is your divine return. And it starts, now.